Hi!
Hello, everybody.
Welcome to Historia.
I'm Jamie.
I'm Kiley.
Okay, so I'm gonna get right into the saga. So last week, in the middle of the episode, I got a text message saying that someone that my McDonald order was placed and that it was coming. Well, they keep texting me, and supposedly it just got dropped off to a lobby somewhere. This person doesn't know if they're getting their food.
So, yeah, someone's using Jamie's phone number on accident, maybe, perhaps. Yeah, they won't know their McDonald's is currently in the lobby.
I don't even know what Seamless is. What the fuck is Seamless?
Like easy, right? Isn't that what that means? I don't know.
No, it says the Seamless app. I don't want to click on, like, the link that they have because I fear it's like they're trying to hack me. But then someone literally just picked me and said, texted me and said, your food pickup from the lobby, thank.
Thank.
It literally just says thank.
Why do they have this number? What's the area code?
It's 3112.
I don't know where that is.
I don't know where that is either. It has to be on the East Coast because the time said like 6:35 and it's only 4:39 here.
Yeah.
So that is the saga. It has been ended. This person's not going to know if they have their food. That's on.
Ruby's getting kicked out again.
No. This. So. Oh, I'm so sorry. So I figured out from Ruby. So every time I keep coming in here.
Yeah.
I keep finding her food bowl like all the way over here. And I'm like, what are you doing? I'm very confused. I'm like, okay, the cat. So I was just watching her one night.
Yeah.
And she's a clever cat. She's very, very clever. So what she does, since she has an auto feeder, she's figured out how to get that little flap there to move so food will come out.
Oh.
And so she tries to push up the lid to get that little thing to move to get food to come out of it.
Oh my god.
So when she's hungry, she does that and it moves the entire feeder. So her feeder is like freaking 10 feet from like the wall that it should be. And I'm like, why?
Wow.
So she's a smart little cookie.
Our manager is so smart. Oh my god.
But she's also very annoying when it comes to that because then I can't focus. So it is a wild this week. Wild start to this week. And I don't know what Kiley's doing today, and it's going to be a big one.
It's a big one, guys. I've never done a big one like this.
You know what? That's good.
I'm stressed about it a little bit.
It's good.
Because I'm not done researching.
Oh.
So that's why, currently it's three parts. I don't think I'll need more than that. I'm going to keep the third part, short, hopefully. I just don't know how long, these episodes are going to take me. Yeah. So, I don't know what to expect. I don't know. We're gonna just see what happens. Oh, God. I procrastinated researching, and then 2 days ago, I was like, I should probably pick a topic. And then I picked a huge topic, so.
Oh, did you not think it was big when you
No, I knew.
It? Oh.
I knew, but originally, I was going to just do, a part of it. I'll explain it in a second, but.
You just couldn't.
No. Okay, so, we're going to Greece.
Oh, hell yes! Can I guess it?
Yeah.
Is it the Trojan War?
No.
Is it the Peloponnesian War?
Sort of.
Troy?
I'm just talking about Sparta.
Fuck! Yeah. Sparta.
This is Sparta! I was gonna say that at the beginning.
Love it.
So originally what I wanted to do is I wanted to do women in Sparta. Because, it's just so interesting, the rights of, not the rights, but, the way that they, were... at this time, which I'm going to talk about, but then I was like, let's just cover all of it.
Spartan women were badass.
Oh, yeah, they were.
Unlike
right.
I could have given you my books.
Well, I'm not done researching.
Oh, yeah, I'll just give you all of my books.
Okay, perfect. That's the thing. I didn't want to, make this a one episode thing because this is a huge topic. And I could have just covered, maybe a little aspect of it, but I was like, we're going in. It's my spring break. I have time. I'm going in. So,
yeah,
I'm doing it.
Yeah.
I'm very excited.
Yeah. I love it. I'm so excited. I love Greece. Sparta is just...
Yeah, you chip in at any time. I didn't know much about Sparta. Like, honestly, I know, like, they fight, right? And I know, like, Athens, they're, like, the opposite of Athens. And then, like, what do you see in the movies? It's like, oh, that's probably what Sparta is. 300. But there's a lot of differences than what you see in the movie. So, 300 is probably the biggest one. Mm-hmm. Which I'd like to maybe cover, like, when we get to the last part, like, the things that they had right, things they had wrong. So, we'll get there. But this is very exciting, guys. There's a lot of things that go into Sparta. Are you ready?
I am ready.
All right. Also, I can't pronounce anything right, so I'm going to try.
Okay.
So, yeah. Okay. So, ancient Sparta is located in Laconia, which is a regional unit of Greece. It's known for mighty warriors, a unique social hierarchy and system. That's me being dramatic. It moved through various levels of success, failure, dominance, and it ended with destruction. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to talk about all of those different levels. So, Spartans communicated precisely and to the point. That's what they were known for, which is the word laconic. Means using very few words. So because they were near Laconia, that's where that name came from. It's people who use very few words, which is very fascinating. Spartan warriors, I'm going to be talking about a lot of different aspects of them, but they're famous for their bravery, battle skills, and advanced battle formations and tactics. It's just very interesting how they like came up with their ideas and how brave they are, because they truly are. So, Sparta was known to be advanced in politics, education, and physical training was definitely the highest. Men trained to be warriors, physically strong and mentally smart. So not only was it like, man, you got to work out, get really strong, but also like they had to be hella smart in order to accomplish their goal. So women were also pretty educated to the high level. I'm going to get to women later, like way later, probably episode 2. Yeah. Because I do want to go more into depth about like women and also like the culture. Yeah. So the beginning is just going to be me talking about like the history that led to like the biggest time for Sparta. And then I'll talk a little bit about like the first quote unquote like wars, I guess. So that's what this episode's going to be about. So the foundation, we're going back around late 10th century or early 9th century is when they kind of see the biggest part of this. 9th century BC. Left that out. Kind of important. The first settlements and villages came together because they wanted to be able to feel secure and strong. So anyone who's like going into this Greek area, they decide to kind of work together in order to become strong and secure. So because we had people from different areas, this is where we think that the 2 kings of Sparta lineage might have started from. Because Sparta does have 2 kings, which is different than a lot of other places.
How did they manage that?
One does one side and one does the other.
All right.
Yeah, like south and one does east of the river. We'll talk about where this area is, where Sparta is. It's located in a valley on the bank of the Eurotas River, and it's the southeast part of Greece. So basically, they were in control of the Laconia and the Messenia, which I'm going to talk about kind of how those two come together, and then they're kind of involved in Sparta as well. But Spartans studied war. Athens and many other places focused on art, theater, and philosophy, so that was a big difference. And they were considered to have the strongest army in Greece. So let's talk about the different rulers. Agamemnon ruled over the east. And then we had Menelaus and his wife Helen, who ruled over the south. So Helen's beauty once caused the Trojan War, which I actually did not cover the Trojan War. We could definitely do that at a different time.
Wait, did you mean Agamemnon?
Yes.
Oh.
Thanks.
Sorry.
Agamemnon.
Agamemnon.
Okay. Yes, that is correct. Not Adja.
No.
Okay. Agamemnon ruled over the east.
Agamemnon.
Did I not say it right? Agamemnon. It's like, no, me.
You're trying.
Agamemnon. I would call him Aggie. King Aggie. Just kidding. King Agamemnon ruled over the east. Oh, God. Yes, that's who I was trying to pronounce. But yeah. I didn't get into the Trojan War. I'm kind of going a little bit after.
Dude, that's like a whole separate...
Yeah, I was like, no, we ain't doing that
That's
shit.
like another branch.
Yeah, no. So, in 11 BC, everything was under fire, and nobody knows what happened. Dun, 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 dun.
They're still trying to find Troy.
Mm-hmm.
It's what happened.
It's wild.
Yeah.
But, so, during the Dark Ages, people tried to find new land, brought their few possessions with them. Just trying to find a place to basically rebuild their life. And so they settled in this area, and the river runs through it all year round. So they liked this area because they knew that they had the consistent water access, but also there was a lot of farmland around.
That's very important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so people really wanted to live there for farming. Everyone settled in, and as this was happening, new Spartans were created. They built a temple called the Menelaean to honor their legendary king and his wife. That was Helen, who I was talking about.
Fuck Helen. Sorry.
Jesus. All right, we'll get to that later. I will not be discussing Helen, but maybe Jamie wants to. My God. Okay, so new cities like Sparta were all over Greece at the time, and they varied in size and power, but they were all governed by mutually agreed laws and customs. So they were able to kind of all decide on the same things together. But it's just so weird how like every part of Greece was different.
Yeah.
It's insane, but it's kind of cool that they had that freedom.
Dude, they hated each other.
Oh, yeah. The values varied, but they wanted to create good order and justice and protect against chaos and a land without laws. So, much of what Sparta had was actually destroyed, but they have found a few things. Obviously, it's hard to tell when it came from when they do find these different artifacts, but they actually found the first one, I think it was 1905.
Dang.
So it took a long time for them to find anything.
Are they near the ocean? I can't remember. They're near the ocean, aren't they?
They're near the river, but I don't think they're very close to the ocean.
Because I'm wondering if like flood could have taken away a lot of stuff.
Maybe. Yeah.
Earthquakes.
Yeah, maybe. But we'll get to that. That's just kind of an introduction. Like, what happened? Dun, dun, dun. So it's hard to know the truth and kind of what's happened because this happened so long ago. Yeah. And if you think about Sparta and themselves, they didn't write things down that often.
Oh,
because they were too busy, you know?
No.
So usually you can see like artwork and like, oh, people wrote all these stories about themselves, but not Sparta. They did not have time for that shit.
No, they had other stuff, and the people who probably wrote about them hated them.
Yeah. Right. So they weren't writing about themselves. Mm-mm. They weren't making anything. So that's why we don't have a lot on them. But like I mentioned, they do have two kings. So these kings were direct descendants of the great grandsons of Heracles. Did we talk about him? Yeah, we did. Yeah. Which is the strong man of Greek myth. So they believe that those two kings came from him. He's our great grandson.
Heracles is also known as Hercules in Roman
mythology.
Yes.
Watch or listen to episode one of our episodes.
The Greek mythology one.
Yeah, I think it's like 5. I don't know. I'm not even gonna guess. Just
you'll find it.
Just scroll up a bit. All right. So they began enslaving non-Spartans because of everyone who wanted to live there because there were so many people.
Yeah.
They were like, well, I guess we can have these people be slaves. Woohoo! Party!
Go figure.
Talking about slaves again. All right. So the slaves that they enslaved the people who wanted to be Spartans, but they couldn't. They were called Perioikoi, and the word means those who live around. So it's just like, you live here, but you ain't a Spartan. Good luck.
How do you get the title to be a Spartan?
Oh, you gotta train.
Oh.
Yeah. So many other people were craftsmen and traders. Sparta wanted more farmland, and so they turned their eyes west, wondering what was beyond the mountains. This led to some craziness. They marched through the mountains for days, and it brought them to the Messenian territory. They wanted freedom almost as much as land. And so because of this, they were fighting for their land. That's what they wanted. So they decided to go up to the Messenians and be like, hey, y'all are our captives. Good luck. So basically destroyed all of them and caused them to be destroyed.
Yeah.
So they could have their land. And slavery in Greece was pretty normal, but having slaves that weren't foreigners was very different because usually it was just like, you know, people who were from different countries.
Yeah.
But Sparta was like, hell no, we're going to have our own Greeks be the slaves.
Yeah, a lot of prisoner of wars. And then
Yeah.
in this case, it's just like, hey.
Hey,
You're a slave.
You're a slave. LOL. Good luck. So they were the first place to really enslave a lot of the fellow Greeks.
Mm-hmm.
People started doing this after them, but they were the first one to be like, you're a Greek, but you're also a slave. So this took 2 full-scale wars lasting 20 years or more. And the second war, there was actually an eyewitness. His name is Tertius. It's definitely not right. Tertius. He was a Spartan soldier and poet, and he said that it was brave for a man to fight for his homeland. So he's basically saying, like, if you're a man, you gotta fight. And so this was his words. Come on, young men, make the spirit in your heart strong and valiant. Do not be in love with life when you are a fighting man. You must fight. Like,
wow.
Yeah, you can't really enjoy anything else in life.
Aww.
And they sounded like kind of like battle cries, saying that they have to fight for the land that they want, and they cannot give up on it. And so we're going to get into the fighting. I'm going to mention the hierarchy real quick of the 3 different social classes that they have. So at the top, we have the Spartan society. Mm-hmm. This was the actual Spartan citizen. So there were relatively few Spartan citizens, but they were the people who could trace their ancestry to the original people who formed the city of Sparta. So they had to be able to trace it back, basically. Okay. There are a few exceptions when they like adopted sons who performed well in battle. So if they were like, this guy's really strong, let's take him, he would become a citizen if he did well in battle.
Wow.
Yeah. But that was very rare for that to happen. Mm-hmm. So then underneath them, we have the Perioikoi, which I kind of talked about. The Perioikoi were the free people who lived in Spartan islands, or Spartan lands, but were not Spartan citizens. Okay, so they have to start off as slaves, and then eventually they become a part of.
So they're like indentured servants.
Basically,
okay.
Yes. They could travel to other cities, they could own land, and they were allowed to trade. But many of the Perioikoi were Laconians who were defeated by the Spartans. And then we have the Helots. Helots, yes, that was right. Okay. The Helots were the largest portion of the population. So this is the slaves or the serfs to the Spartans. They formed their own land but had to give half of their crops to the Spartans as payment. Oh. I know. Helots were beaten once a year and were forced to wear clothing made from animal skins. And whenever they were caught trying to escape, they were killed. So many of them did not last very long.
Oy.
So those were the 3 classes. Very exciting. But the people who trained to be fighters, they were called hoplites. So they were basically infantry men with 8-foot-long spears, and they had a round shield. Mm-hmm. Most cities in ancient Greece had their own styles of hoplites, and they weren't professional soldiers. They were usually just like farmers. Mm-hmm. So it was like anyone who wanted to fight, but they were not a part of like the training. Yeah, they would be a hoplite basically. So as citizens, they felt like it was their duty to help fight. So they had the soldiers, but they also were like, we can help, and so we're gonna do it as well. So Olympia is the unofficial shrine of hoplite fighter. So you'd go there to dedicate your arms to the gods in thanks for victory. So anytime you felt like you were like, oh, you're gonna win this, you would dedicate it to the gods. They held their shields by thrusting the armband. So if you've ever seen like a picture of it, it's like the round shield, and they like put their arm around it. And they grasp it into, it's called a leather thong, I just think it's funny, at the rim. These weighed around 20 pounds. So just thinking of that, it's made of wood and metal. Yeah. So they had to carry this around with them as they fought. Like, woo! Basically, you could not let your arm fall or the shield drop. This was the biggest disgrace. that you could ever do.
Ugh.
Yeah. So you had to hold it the whole time. It didn't matter how long you were walking. You had to hold it.
Good Lord, it's like holding a big child.
Exactly. I'm like, 20 pounds? That's why you gotta train, I guess. So hoplite fighting was a team effort. Half of the shield was for you, while the other half was for the man to your left. So the way that they're holding it, it also protects half of them.
So it like shifted.
Yeah, so you're looking out for not only yourself, but also the person next to you.
Okay.
Which was a very high value that they had in Sparta, was like looking out for those around you as well.
Yeah.
So the hoplites formed into ranks called a phalanx, and they were 50 shields across, basically. So you would just see this like group of them kind of walking together. They had to stand really next to each other. You've probably seen this in the movies too. But walking right next to each other and then like having those shields in front of them. Around 50 of them would stay together.
Well, you would see too, a lot of times they would, especially if there was a big, I guess a big battle going on, like a lot of times they would group into like a circle.
Yes.
And then that's what they would do, is like put like a whole giant shield dome thing.
So again, teamwork makes the dream work.
Well, that's what, honestly, like if you are a dedicated, like military-esque, dominated like city-state, you have to be.
Right.
Like teamwork is one of the most important things, even when it's not, because they were pretty big with sports too.
Yeah.
So it was like that consists of teamwork too.
And if you were the one guy who wasn't doing that, you just killed everyone.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah.
So yeah, they really had to trust each other. Otherwise they'd be killed. So they had to grit their teeth and stand ground in phalanx. So it means that they could not stand away or hide under their shield. So they couldn't just have one guy be like, I'm gonna go home. They all had to stand together. When it was time, they could lift their shield, but they all had to do it at the same exact time. So we couldn't have one guy kind of turn the opposite direction. Like that would mess everything up. And so they believed that those who stuck together would die in smaller numbers, and they would keep the troops behind them safe. So the ones who are in the front are the ones that are really risking their lives.
Yeah.
Because everyone in the back would push forward. So when it was time to fight, they would push forward, kind of like how they do in rugby.
Yeah.
To fight, basically. So they're pushing everyone forward, while the people in like the first 3 rows were the ones who usually got killed. Yeah. So they knew like their strongest leaders would be in the front. And the leaders knew like, wow, we'll probably die, but they gave up their life for it. Like that was what they were committed to doing in Sparta. Which I think is interesting, because I feel like watching the movies, it's like Sparta feels like very like heartless. Like they're just like, I just want to fight. But like really they're doing it because they like truly want to give up their lives for Greece. You know, it's kind of interesting. But yeah, so if you're in the front, you're screwed. Basically.
You would think you would put the weaker members in the front.
Yeah.
And keep your stronger in the
yeah.
back.
And I know they did that as well, but they had to have like certain people like telling them what to do. So they had to be in the front too. But I'm guessing like the ones who are like in the front middle would probably be like the weaker ones.
Yeah.
Or the new soldiers.
Yeah.
And then like as you progress, you just like kind of get pushed back.
Yeah, that's your higher rank in the military. You're in the back.
You're the caboose. So in 650 BC, they finally enslaved the Messenians officially. They were their slaves for 300 years after that, which is a very long time. And so a lot of them were like, okay, well, we've taken over the Messenians, they're all slaves, but how are we going to keep this a thing? So that we don't have like new people coming into this land and making it theirs. So most other places in Greece were going through civil wars between the rich and the poor. This was close to happening in Sparta. So they decided to go for the idea of a utopia. And it would be too much to keep the Messeni captured and destroyed, basically. So they are basically kind of making amends with them and saying, you're our slaves. We're going to work together so that we don't end up fighting each other. Their goal was a perfect society. It had discipline. It was collective, and it was unselfish. That's what they believed about themselves. So.
That's what they believed about themselves.
They're very unselfish.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so now, in order to have a revolution. There needs to be a leader. They believed that their revolution leader was Lycurgus, and he was known as the Wolf Maker. There's no proof that he existed, but Spartans believe that he did. He was known to be a miracle worker. He created heaven on earth following the advice from the gods. So people would be like, yeah, I saw him, but they actually didn't know if they actually saw him. But they believe that he was the one that led them through everything. So.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. In 650 BC, the Messenians were defeated. The Spartans set out to become the best hoplite warriors Greece had ever seen. And so they started the military training camp because now it's getting more intense. So they're like, you know what? When kids are born, they're going to start training right away. It's going to be awesome. So I think we talked about this at some point when we were talking about Greece last time, but the kids being thrown off the cliff.
Oh, yeah. They would just yeet them off.
Yeah, I hate to laugh at it, but it's just kind of, they literally were just like, they don't look strong. But
yeah.
That's so terrifying and sad, but the kids were thrown off.
Twins?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So if the child was born, they made an assumption right away if they would be a good fighter or not. And if they wouldn't be, they would throw them off a cliff.
I mean, that's population control, unfortunately.
Yeah. In Sparta, specifically for if they were female, they would usually keep the female, but they would just kind of be like, well, she's just going to stay in here. We're not really going to worry about her for a bit. But a lot of times they would kick females off if they could tell that they were going to be more weak.
Yeah.
They would kick them off. So anyone who looked to be weak, they're yeeted. Goodbye. You gotta meet their expectations.
I wonder if they found any of the skeletons in like any of the areas. That'd be fun. That would be interesting to research to see if they found any artifacts.
Yes, it would be. So the unwanted babies would also sometimes just be left on the mountain alone. They would just be like, bye. And then city elders could decide whether they would live or die. So this was a popular thing, not so much in Sparta, but like in like Athens and other areas around. They had people who would take the baby and take care of it. But in Sparta, it was like, if you left the baby there, nobody's probably going to come get it because they know there's no point in this child. But sometimes they would just be like, maybe someone will take him. Yeah. Just leave him here on this rock. It's so sad. You're just going to suffer there.
It's leaving fate.
Yeah. I'd rather be thrown off a cliff than to just be left there like suffering.
Yeah.
For who knows how long. But if you were a male, you were to be trained to become a warrior from the second you were born. I just imagine they're like, just came out of the womb and they're like, all right, let's get your sweats on. Let's go.
Give me 5.
Give me 5. Why is this kid not doing push-ups? Throw him off. Like, oh my God. Little boys were raised by their moms. And I'm also going to be talking about in part 2, the mom relationship, because it's very interesting. They were raised by their moms until they were 7. And then they were sent to military school. And there's a lot of different pronunciations for this. I think in the Greek pronunciation, it's like goge or agage. A lot of times I hear it agogi or agogi. So I'm like, I'm just going to go with agogi to be safe. But it's basically the military school for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at the agogi, they were trained how to fight. But they also learned different things like reading and writing. They basically lived in tiny little areas where they were beaten to become tough. So they were like, the more we beat the kid, the more tough they will become.
Let's just traumatize this child.
Let's just screw them up mentally.
Yes.
And this is going to definitely work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So they were given little to eat in order to get used to war life.
Wow.
Yeah. They were encouraged to fight each other. So sometimes they'd just be sitting there and they're like, fight him! And they're like, okay. Just like start punching each other.
Oh, God.
Dog fight! So like sometimes they would literally just start fighting each other out of nowhere.
Wow.
Just to practice. So this also would test things like integrity and teamwork by having them just see if they would stick up for each other, like how they're going to protect each other.
Yeah.
But also they were treated like animals. They weren't treated very well in these camps, but again, it's just because they want to toughen them up.
I don't, if they like malnutrition them, like, how did they gain any muscle?
Well, they gave them, I'm going to talk about what they eat later because I don't specifically remember right now, but I think I'm getting to there soon. But they gave them something that like is healthy. So they were able to digest that and still be able to train. So it's not like they were starved. Just what they ate was a very small amount.
Yeah.
But it's still, I don't know how. I guess they were so skinny that like they already had the muscles like already popping out. So then they just like lifting weights and not weights, but like lifting rocks. So they would usually be in these military schools and they wouldn't graduate until they were around 20 to 30. It just depended on how long it would take them. Some people were faster than others. Some could train quicker and kind of catch on, and they might be out by the time they're 20. But for the majority, it took them to be about like 26, 27 until they were able to graduate. And then they would immediately get married and start a family. So they entered the army usually around age 25. Yeah. Around there. So they were fully grown, I guess. Grown-ass men. Yeah. The older child was known as a boy herd. So basically he was in charge of a few of the people. So whenever you had like younger kids coming into the training for the first time, they would take like an 18-year-old-ish and they would become the boy herd, is their name. They're just in charge of that.
Wow.
Yeah. And then every like 12-year-old was assigned to an older guy, which I'm going to get into later because there's very interesting things that go with that.
Yeah.
But if we think about it, like through this training, it really was intense. Like they had to endure freezing temperatures. They had little food, like barely anything to eat. They were encouraged to steal food. So if they were caught, they were flogged. And this was not for stealing food. It was for not getting away with it.
Wow.
Yeah. So anytime where like somebody would catch them stealing, beaten. So.
Why didn't you do this better?
You weren't supposed to get caught. They had something called cryptia, which was for boys who showed particular promise. They were given a knife and they were let loose to kill anyone who wasn't supposed to be there.
Oh.
So they're just wandering through like the trees with a knife, just running around.
What the fuck?
I'm like, but they ended up killing a few people who were like coming into Sparta for no reason because they're not a Spartan.
Oh.
Yeah. So they were on the loose. Bunch of kids with knives running around.
That is terrifying.
I know. I'm like, oh my God, this is the normal thing that's going on? Okay. That's fine.
That's fine.
There were a bunch of kids ruling the area with weapons, and this kept slaves obeying and quiet. Because if you can imagine, like, not only are, like, the adults telling you to do something, but the children are like, hey, go do this. And, like, pull out a knife. Like, you're not gonna want to fight back.
Savage.
If you're a slave, you're just like, okay, yes, child, I will do it.
Yes, child.
Must listen to the child. Like, that's just, it's scary to think about, boy, like, these kids just, like, trying to get you to do something.
Absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
That's how you create a serial killer.
Exactly.
I'm sure a lot of those kids just went on to be serial killers.
Oh, yeah. Probably killed each other, honestly.
Yeah.
But the boys tested against their own limitations. They wanted to see how far they could get. So, I love this story. When they are at age 12, so they've been in training since they were 7. Okay, so they're 12 now. They are brought to an altar full of cheese.
What?
And at this altar, they have to steal as many cheeses as possible. And while they're doing this, so they have to run up to the altar, get as much cheese, and there's older boys in front of them, and they are basically holding whips. So as the kids approach them, they're getting whipped. But they have to endure the whippings to get past them to get the cheese.
What the fuck?
Yeah. This is like a fun game.
This is a game?
Yes.
Ugh.
The older boys thought it was hilarious because they were like, we went through this is funny. So they were just whipping, and then some were beat so badly that they died.
It's like Hell Week.
Yeah. basically. It's like, can you endure this? Let's see. Are you going to make it? Hazing. Don't do it. But they wanted to get rid of being an individual and being a part of something larger than themselves. So this was their way of being like, you can steal for yourself, but you still need to like help each other. So anytime where someone was getting beat, they had to like push through and try to like get past them.
Yeah.
It's very fascinating. The cheese game.
Good Lord.
Okay, one of my favorite things about Sparta is that they also focused heavily on music and dancing. They believed that these were more essential than reading and writing. Because if you think about the way that they like march through with like their swords, the way that they go through and like kind of stand in their formations, they're dancing in a way.
I can't imagine what their practice sessions were like.
Oh,
okay,
I know.
Guys,
5, 6, 7, 8. Move to the left. Kick. Swords.
Kick.
Yeah. I mean, why is dancing so funny in like the old days? Like, I'm still wondering how they danced. Where was that? I remember. Remember when I was so intrigued? I wanted to know how they danced. I don't remember who we were talking about.
Was it the
My memory is really bad. No. Well, I'm still curious about their dancing too. The one who was a ballerina.
Oh, Sophocles.
Yes, Sophocles. Yes. I'm still wondering how Sophocles danced.
Dude, majestic.
So basically, when they are walking with their shields, they're kind of dancing. So they believed they had to have some good dance training.
Yeah.
And they needed music training because they needed to be able to like step together.
Oh yeah, keep on beat.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
I just imagine that one kid that's like off beat.
Oh, he probably got whipped.
Oh yeah, he probably didn't make it, honestly.
Yeah.
But so basically Sparta, because of this, they earned a reputation for being the most musical and the most warlike, which I just think is funny.
Interesting.
They go together.
I guess. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. So once a boy man turned 20, I guess they're considered a man.
Yeah.
They were elected to dining clubs to spend most of their time when they weren't fighting. Basically, they just hung out, ate food, a little bit of food, not very much, but mostly they just hung out with other men. So they have to get elected. It's like a secret club that they get invited to. And so they hung out here all the time when they were not fighting, just to kind of hang out with the guys. There was like a man cave, but it's not guaranteed. You could fail and then you were publicly humiliated. Aww. So if you did not pass training, imagine that, like training from the time you're 7 to like 20.
Yeah.
And not making it.
Like, what the hell do you do?
You're useless.
Yeah.
You literally are useless.
You become a slave.
Most likely, and people make fun of you, and they like literally they make you sing an embarrassing song and like dance around naked. Like, it's just horrible, but some people didn't make it. If elected, they were given a large area of land by the state, and they were also given slaves. So those who were passing at this point, and entered into the dining club. Now they were at the top of the hierarchy, and they were considered Spartan citizens.
Okay.
So this is what they ate. They ate pig's blood and vinegar.
What?
Yeah. And it was known as melassomas, and they ate this every single day.
It's like a paste.
Yeah. Spartans were one of the first to have a system of how people were treated. So in 480 BC, there was really bad news coming.
Ooh.
The Persian Empire was on the move.
Oh.
Oh, yeah. There is a huge force that was heading towards them. And so it's time to see if the warriors are really going to live up to their expectations.
Ooh.
Because up until this point, they haven't really had to fight. They've only really fought each other to train. But now it is time to put their skills to the test.
Yeah.
Are they going to save the Greek world from destruction? What's going to happen next? Okay. But I'm going to talk about a few more things and then we'll stop for this episode.
Oh.
So, I'm not done here. Okay. In 1925, yes, I'm jumping, a body of a Spartan warrior was found. They discovered this to be Leonidas, and he was Sparta's superhero.
Leonidas, yeah.
Leonidas, yes. And so there was not a lot of proof that is actually him, but he's currently sitting in a museum in Sparta, and it shows what the ultimate Spartan looks like.
Yeah.
So even if it may not be him, they're seeing like kind of what they wore, but also like this is what a Spartan soldier looks like.
Well, I wonder what they found if it had like the because the shield would have made it. Well, if it was made out of wood, maybe not, but like any of the remaining pieces of metal.
Yeah. They didn't. I don't think they found much like metal. I don't really know the details.
The wood would probably deteriorate and expose.
Yeah, I guess they would have to see some of the metal then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because metal can withstand anything.
Right.
It's just the wood that wouldn't.
Yeah, that'd be interesting
to
see like half swords because the wood is cut off. So the real Leonidas, he was a member of the Agadae, and this was one of the aristocrat families that gave Sparta a king. So he was on the throne for 10 years when the Persians started coming west.
Okay.
So I just had to, jump to that because they think that they found him, but they don't know for sure if it's him.
Yeah, it's like, how would you determine if it was, unless there was like some sort of inscription like on him, like a lot of like Egyptians do.
Right.
But yeah, for them, like, it's really hard to tell.
It's just crazy that they didn't find that till 1925. I'm like, I wonder what else they're gonna find. Like,
oh yeah, there's new things being uncovered.
It's
day.
crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so Persia was the regional superpower of the Eastern Mediterranean. The Persian king Darius made the first move. He set forces to the land of Marathon, and they were destroyed by Athens and the Athens allies. So the king ended up dying. Now it was up to his son, Xerxes, to sort out the troublesome Greece. So now it's all up to Xerxes. We're going to find out. Is he going to do it? It's getting intense. Okay, so in 480 BC, this is when the Persians headed out towards Greece. There was such a big army that they drank whole rivers dry as they walked through them.
Holy shit.
I'm like, wow, that's a lot of people. So more than 300,000 soldiers would travel together, and this was big enough to basically destroy Greece. So when Sparta heard about this, they sent for advice to the oracle at Delphi. So basically they're going to all of the messengers. So the oracles were the messages from the gods delivered through mouth of different, they believe that they were possessed priestesses, basically. Yeah. So they wanted advice of what do we do? They treated them as if they were military orders, like as if it was somebody telling them like, hey, go fight, do this, you stand here, you go with him.
They're having a bunch of women tell them what to do.
I know, I love that. I'm like, yes. But they're like, they're possessed.
Yeah.
Like that's the only reason why we trust them. It's like, what? And so the Spartans were told to fight to their death. No matter what happens, they need to fight. They need to stand up for their land. And they are going to work together to destroy Persia. So their force was under the command of King Leonidas, headed north to stop their advance in the Thermopolis. They used thousands of soldiers to create a war to stop Persians in their tracks. And so they're basically building a wall by themselves. The Greeks were outnumbered, but the smart thing that the Greeks did is that they knew their geography. So their goal is to kind of stand in this area where they know the Persians are going to enter, and then many others would go to different parts where they could come around by. So they were building walls everywhere, basically, because they knew the places that the Persians could come into. So this was like protecting them over sea and land. So they would distract them while the men would barricade the different areas. And so Leonidas and his 300 soldiers were ready to show what it meant to be a Spartan. So Spartans knew to come up to the enemy calmly. So you always come up calmly. Is it McDonald's?
I don't know.
Just kidding.
Why do people keep calling me?
Jamie's number is just out there. Okay. I hope that person got the McDonald's. I'm just thinking about them. All right. So, the Spartans always knew you have to come up to your enemy calmly. No matter how stressed you are, act calm. Never flee the battlefield. You can't just run away.
Nope.
Not how it works. You are working together as a team. And then the last thing is that you have to embrace it. You have to embrace death. They believed that death was a beautiful sacrifice. So if you ended up dying, you were just doing what was right. It's beautiful. And so they knew that more than likely they will not survive. And so that is something that they believed as they were walking up to them. But they held the wall for 3 days.
Dang.
So just imagine, like, standing there with your shield, 20 pounds, 3 days. I'm like, and they were counterattacking in hoplite formation. Sorry. My writing got a little messy there. So the Persians attacked 3 times, and they were hit back each time. Xerxes almost gave up, but then he was told of a secret path that went behind the Greek wall. So the Greeks were now surrounded. They went behind the mountain, like kind of in a different area, and they're starting to think, shit, I don't think anyone's over there. And so they were able to kind of enter in.
Oh.
Like, God. So on the final morning of this battle, the Spartans followed their rituals. They exercised naked. That was the thing they did all the time. This was their way of seeing if they were actually fit.
Yeah.
Is running around naked. They oiled their bodies, and they combed each other's long hair. He's like, hey man, can you get my hair right here? He's like, yeah, bud, no problem.
I got you.
They wrote their names on sticks and then fastened them to their arms. And this is so people could later identify their bodies. So it's kind of like a dog tag.
Okay.
Which is very interesting.
Yeah.
You had to do what you had to do.
Yeah.
So Xerxes thought that this was funny, though. He was like, these bitches are putting sticks on their arms. It's hilarious. He thought it was funny. He was just laughing at them.
This dude's weird.
Yeah. So the Greeks pressed forward, knowing that this fight would be their last. They fought with reckless desperation, using swords, hands, and even teeth. Just biting each other. Rawr! The Persians overwhelmed them, and this only delayed them for a week because the Persians kept moving south.
Yeah.
So they had to keep pushing kind of the wall back, and they're just entering the land. There's just too many of them coming for them. So this led to another battle, and this was in the sea now. So we had a Greek fleet that was destroyed Persian ships. A year later, the Persians were driven out of Greece. So the fleet was actually the biggest part that destroyed them. It wasn't the soldiers so much as the people who were working on the fleet. Keep that in mind. So Persians were finally driven out of Greece. A year later, they're like, whatever, we'll come back later. But like for now, we're just going to go. We're going to leave. And so Sparta justified their claims of being good fighters and well-trained. They're like, we did it. Yeah. High-fiving each other.
Wow.
Good job, bro. Sparta had a treasure of fame that no other city had because of their willingness to not give up when they were completely outnumbered. Athens and Sparta were allies at this point, but they had a lot of differences.
Oh,
They were now scared and paranoid of each other. They're like, one of us is going to do something.
Oh my God.
And so Athens would decide the fate of Greece.
Of course they would.
And they go against the Spartans. We're going to jump into that. But what is the fate going to be? Dun, 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 dun! So that was like the introduction. Episode 2 is going to focus on the culture, kind of what's going on. I'm also going to be hitting Athens a bit. And talking about them. So, yes.
Gotta love them. How exciting. Freaking Sparta.
There's so much that goes into it.
Yeah, there is. For how much they didn't record, there is quite a bit to know on them.
Yeah. I'm
from
impressed.
just like all the other history from everybody else, from what we found.
Right.
It's just, there's more to uncover.
I just wish they would have, like, at least written something.
They didn't give a fuck.
They're too busy fighting with their shields.
Their shields.
But yeah, I'm excited to continue talking about this because there's still more that goes into it.
Woo!
I think I can fit it into 3 parts, so.
Nice.
But stick around for next week, guys, because it's going to be part 2
Part 2
of Sparta.
Awesome. Where can you find us?
You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at His Story the Podcast. You can also email us at hisstorythepodcast@gmail.com. You can put in your requests, your comments, your stories.
Everything?
Everything you can think of. You can email us and say hi.
We don't mind.
No, we do not.
Well, thank you for joining in this very interesting episode. I am so excited to see what you'll do for next week.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a little bit that I know about Sparta, but not a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not a lot, but...
I'm excited for next week because, like I said, I wanted to originally talk about the women in Sparta. I'm going to be touching on that next week. So, and there's a lot more to uncover.
Heck yeah.
So, woohoo! Stay tuned.
Yes. Thanks.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.